how this 70-year-old retiree ended up with 4 times the retirement income from his IRAs and 401ks. In this episode, I'm going to address a strategy called a strategic rollout that saved this person over $250,000 of unnecessary tax. So I'm Doug Andrew, and I've been helping people prepare for a comfortable retirement, to not outlive their money now for nearly 5 decades as a financial strategist and a retirement planning specialist. Now, if you've watched very many of my educational episodes, you'll soon learn that my favorite vehicle is a max-funded indexed universal life insurance contract, structured correctly and funded properly, which less than 1% of them in America are. But if they are qualified to be deemed a Laserfund. Laser is an acronym that stands for liquid assets, safely earning returns. And it is the title of my best-selling book that's been flying off of our warehouse shelves. I want to gift you a free copy of this at the end of the episode, so stay with me here to claim your free copy. I'll show you how to get it. But in here, one of my favorite strategies is to help people get money out of their IRAs and 401ks with a strategic rollout. This is not a rollover, okay? A rollover is like going from the frying pan into the fire, so to speak, where people have money in 401ks, they roll it over to IRAs, and they continue to delay until they're age 72. And if they still don't need the money, they're required to take it out to avoid a 50% penalty on top of the tax. And so they start RMDs, required minimum distributions, which I think is the worst advice for most Americans. And hopefully you'll see why as I proceed here. So in my various books, my educational videos, you'll sooner or later come across this chart showing 4 buckets. Because most people at retirement, they will draw from up to 4 different general sources. Most people in America are relying too much. They're way too top heavy with their money in this purple bucket. I call the investment bucket. This would be yet to be taxed. IRAs and 401ks invested in the market, okay? And Wall Street was not designed to create predictable income, and you're not going to be in a lower tax bracket when you retire if you save very much money. And so people have this rude awakening. They realize they're in a tax trap, and I need to free them from that trap. And so they want to get money out of this purple bucket, but they're scared to death because their CPAs and tax attorneys, their financial advisors are saying, oh, if you don't need the money yet, keep deferring. Defer. You'll save tax in this given year. And then the next year, if you ask a CPA, be honest with me, over the long haul, am I saving tax by continuing to defer to the future when I'm convinced that taxes will likely be higher? And the CPA goes, I'm convinced of that too. Well, then why do you want me to keep deferring until taxes are higher and then pull it out? But see, most CPAs are only looking at this given tax year. Well, if you don't want to pay any more tax, then don't take anything out. And don't take anything out. But then when you add up how much it's growing to by deferral, you realize the government has a permanent tax lien. They get 1/3 or more of what that is ever going to grow to. And so it's the best savings bond they ever came up with for themselves. So other times people might have real estate where they get rental income. There's a lot of real estate landlords that they get tired of that, and so they hire managers, or they want to sell it, do 1031 exchanges, but then they inherit another headache, and finally they just want out. They pay the capital gain tax. If they put it into my favorite vehicle, the Laserfund, they're shocked when they get as much or more income than their rental properties ever did, and they don't even have to fix toilets and evict tenants anymore, okay? So, but that's where some people have some of their retirement nest egg. Others might have a pension, a school teacher, police officer, firefighter. Some people rely on Social Security, or some people use annuities that will guarantee them an income, that if they run out of money, they will not run out of income if they live long enough, okay? But this is the most underutilized. It's the green bucket, the tax-free one. And you'll quickly learn on this channel and in the book I'll gift you that there's three basic choices most people are aware of. Roths, Roth IRAs and 401ks, and I've never owned one, I never will. There might be some municipal bonds, but those aren't near as popular because they're low yielding, and there's a lot of municipalities that are filing bankruptcy these days. My favorite vehicle is an MFTA. That stands for Max Funded Tax Advantage Insurance Contract. If it's structured correctly and funded properly, it is deemed a Laserfund. Okay. You'll understand that. So let's go into this idea. This series is designed to show you strategic rollouts. So this is getting money out of this purple bucket and getting the taxes over and done with sooner than later, and then putting the net into here. I recommend no more than 30% of your money still be in here by the time you retire, and many people don't want anything in there, and so we help them do that. I would recommend no more than 30% come from your real estate because they're not always going to have tenants in them. 0 to 80% could be guaranteed depending upon your risk tolerance and your needs, but I would recommend that 40 to 60% of your income not even show up on the front page of your 1040 tax return. It's tax-free. So folks, this is a three-part strategy. I'm going to show you an example here in just a moment, how we strategically repositioned this man's retirement funds, getting the taxes taken care of sooner than later or stringing them out with RMDs. The second thing is we repositioned the money after tax because he didn't need it to live on into something that's tax-free from now on, and it was a portfolio of laser funds, indexed universal life. And at the end of the day, when he passes away, it will reimburse every dime that he would have paid in tax, but we actually incorporated for him the third strategy. We were able to offset the bulk of the tax liability incurred during the rollout by resurrecting tax deductions he had been killing. People go, what are you talking about? Okay, here we go. This was a 70-year-old man, and his spouse had already passed away, and he was turning 70 and a half, and he had $600,000 in yet-to-be taxed IRAs and 401ks. And he had this financial advisor, planner, that had that $600,000 in there all the way from 2000 to 2012. And if you're not aware of that time period, that was the Great Recession and 9/11 terrorist attacks and then the 2008 crash. And so that $600,000 dropped below $360,000 twice from 2000 to 2012, and it was barely back to $600,000. That's why we call it the lost decade or 12-year period. So he had seen that $600,000 go down, over 40% twice, and it was barely back to $600,000. Had he made anything? No. Now his advisor says, "Well, hang in there. Just hang in there. The market will always come back, didn't it?" Well, okay, but because of that market volatility, he was told to only take 4% a year because the broker-dealers do not want you to illustrate any more than a 4% payout. If this person doesn't need it, they don't want to be sued for you outliving your money. Because he had virtually earned nothing over the previous 12 years. But Dalbar says, if you're in the market and so forth, you'll probably average 3.5% between the turmoil of the ups and downs and buying and selling. So that's called the 4% rule. So the advisor says, sir, just take out 4%. Now 4% on 600 is 24,000. So let's just use that. He pulls out 24,000 a year in a 33% bracket. He pays taxes of 8,000. He's netting 16,000 out of 24,000 out of a $600,000 investment to buy gas and groceries, prescriptions, golf green fees. Now, when he came to me with this, and that's what his advisor said to do, that's pathetic. That's unacceptable to me, okay? And if he died, then this goes to his children, and they have to pay tax on that within 10 years. So the net after-tax benefit to the children is still $400,000 because he's going to be slowly depleting it, okay? That is what his advisor told him to do. Follow the herd. This is what you should do. Well, when he came to us, I said, listen, let's take out $12,500 a month out of this $600,000. That's $150,000 a year. He goes, I'm going to have to pay tax on that. I said, that's what we want to do. We want to get $150,000 out because I think, and we were able to help him get a return of about 8.25%. So he was able to pull out $12,500 a month, okay, over a 5-year period, which actually, if you calculate that, that's $750,000. I thought he only had $600,000. Well, we helped him make an extra $150,000 on his money while he's getting it out. Okay, he was going to hopefully do that, but not if he's only earning 4% of the market. So we essentially got out $750,000. Now, at a minimum, I said, it's going to hurt, but you're going to be so glad you did this. You pull out $150,000 a year, you pay tax of a third of 50, you only have a net of 100. I want you to put that 100,000 into a portfolio of laser funds. And it will accumulate tax-free, and it has this death benefit that comes along for the ride. Well, what does that mean? I'll show you. So he rolled out $750,000. Now, if he paid tax of a third, $250,000, he had a net of $500,000. $500,000 in the laser fund, without even adding any interest on that. $500,000, he can, based on historical rates of return since the Great Depression, he could pull out 8% of $500,000. That's $40,000 a year tax-free without depleting principal. How much more is 40 than this? A lot more. It's actually a 10%. He could pull out 10% without depleting principal. 10% of $500,000 would be $50,000. How much more is 50 than 16? 50 is tax-free. But no, I couldn't just stop there. I'm a tax strategist. This guy didn't really need this money. He owned a bunch of rental properties, and what was he doing? He was taking the positive cash flow and sending it against the mortgages because he thought having those rental properties be free and clear when as soon as possible was the best strategy until he came to a tax strategist. And I said, hey, let's resurrect some tax deductions you've been killing on those Schedule E's, the rental, the tax return Schedule E, or it could be an LLC or whatever. I said, you can deduct that interest if you refinance. Or you sell and you buy another one, don't pay cash. So what did he do? He had several rental properties, and he was able to refinance each of these to $1 million, okay? And some of these, he only owed like $50,000 or $100,000 on. He refinanced because he'd been killing the tax deduction. Every $1 million mortgage he took out on his rental properties, and it only took a few of these to totally offset the tax on his rollout, he borrowed at 4.5% interest, which is $45,000 on $1 million. Because of his tax bracket, that saved him a third of that in tax. So his net cost out of pocket out of a 4.5% mortgage is only 3%. Okay, it's 33% less than a 33% bracket. This was his net cost on $1 million, 3%. Why do banks pay you 1%? Because they turn around and reinvest it and loan it out at 5%. They make 5 times what they pay you. I said, you could borrow $1 million and you pay 3% and you keep earning 9% in your laser fund, okay? He's actually doing more than that. How much more is 9 than 3? Don't say 6. It's 300% more. He said, Doug, I was already making tons of money. Now I'm making 300% more. On every $1 million, I'm making 3 times what I pay in interest. Oh my heavens, how come I was so stupid to kill all those tax deductions? But what happened as a byproduct? All of that interest was not a foe, it was his friend. Because he was able to refinance about 3.5 properties and resurrect enough deductions to totally withdraw $150,000 a year out of his IRAs or 401ks, tax-free. He subjected it to tax, the $150,000. It was washed away with $150,000 of interest expense on his tax return. And frankly, he was making money by double dipping by this strategy, and because he was able to get out all 750,000 tax-free. So what did that mean? It means that with 750,000 gross, because we got it out without tax, at 8%, he can pull out 60 grand a year tax-free. At 10%, which he's been earning and averaging, he could pull out 75,000 a year tax-free. How much more is 75 than 16? When he dies, this blossoms to $1.2 million. This one is only 1/3. Why would you generate this much during your retirement when you could generate this or this? And why would you leave behind, at the end of the day, this much out of your IRAs when you could leave behind 3 times that? That's the simple question. So folks, if you want to learn more about how to maybe resurrect deductions and so forth, you can read stories like this in the book, The Laserfund. Here's how you claim your free copy. You simply go to laserfund.com or click on the link below, and you contribute a nominal amount towards the shipping and handling. I require a little bit of skin in the game. I'll cover the rest of that cost, and I will pay for the book. I'll fire out a hard copy to you, but this is actually 2 books in one. This side is all the charts and graphs and explanations if you're a left brain learner. If you learn more by stories and examples, you're a right brain learner, you flip it over and read this one. This has 12 chapters, about 100 pages with 62 client stories like the one I just told you. If you want to use your whole brain, you read both books. But you can check out how to listen and learn, watch and learn, check out some of the online regular free webinars that we teach, but you can even schedule an appointment with an IUL specialist to see how a Laserfund may benefit you, and they can show you a strategic rollout RMD analysis report. If you're thinking you're going to take RMDs, think again, get one of those reports. They're free.